escorted by Dylan Hayward. Kelsey Curry, escorted by Damon App. Audrey Filer, escorted by CJ Rogan. Allie Metters, escorted by Jake Craig.
You don't understand, it's like catching grenades. Throw my hand on the blade.
Annalise Rhodes, escorted by Patrick Jones.
Good enough to make the ocean like someone. Good enough to cover valleys and to mountain tops. And when they have legends sound, oh, that's
Carrie Stapleton, escorted by Cody Kirshner. We'd like to bring back out your 2015 prom court. Yeah, Carrie!
Can we bring the house lights down, or these stage lights down a little bit, please? Thank you, thank you. So we're here today to talk about the ending of our 2015 school year, and I'm glad to see all of you here. For some of you, it's the ending of a chapter. Seniors, you have 8 days of school left, just 8. And for the juniors in the room, that means that you are getting ready to be the next seniors at New Richmond. And I think that deserves a round of applause. And I have to tell you that I'm really nervous up here today, and it's not because of all the students. I stand in front of students all day long, but I think it's because of what I'm going to try to impress to you today. And that's the idea of choices. My question for all of you is to reflect on the idea of how will you be remembered here at New Richmond High School? And the answer to that are a combination of choices that you started making when you were a freshman. And that combination of choices is what has created your memory here, the friends that you have kept, the choices and events that you have participated in, and the choices that we continue to make on our journey even after New Richmond High School will create what we know as a legacy. But I know who I'm talking to today, because I do this daily, and it's a bunch of invincible teenagers. The fact that nothing can harm you, that the world is at your feet, that you can overcome anything. And what makes me nervous to stand here today is the idea that for some of you, I know better. I know that some of you are going to make poor choices. Just the statistics say so. And I want the world for every single one of you in the room. We talk about choices and our ability to make those has changed throughout the years. When we were kids, our parents only gave us the choice of, do you want peas or carrots for dinner? Well, you don't really like either one of those, so the consequence of that choice is going to be you didn't get a treat. But as we've grown and matured, you guys have gotten older, your responsibilities have also changed. And with that, the choices that you've been entitled to make. The choices that you make daily that are now impacting your future. And those consequences of the choices that you make are even more demanding. As you move here from New Richmond into your college or career, do I wake up and go to class or work? Do I decide to pay my electric bill, or should I go for a weekend with my friends? Or perhaps even more, the consequence of life. Do I put my seatbelt on every time I get into a car? Statistics show us that last year in Ohio, 118 teenagers died behind the wheel, and only 37 of them were wearing their seatbelt. A very simple choice that we make. 5 seconds of your time. 5 seconds to look around your car and look at who you're responsible for. It might be your best friend. Maybe it's your mom. And eventually it will probably be your children. How responsible are you behind the wheel as you take on that responsibility? Nowadays, there's a lot of pressures that are imposed on you. When I was in high school, my cell phone was literally this big. It was enormous. There's no way that thing was coming out in the car. You guys now have these little cell phones. I do too. And they're very inviting. We all know texting and driving is a terrible thing. I'd say over half of you do it, if not even more. And almost all of you, if you got a text message, would you check to see who it came from? I'm guilty. I do that. I'm also guilty of being distracted in other ways in the car. I have a bunch of kids. I'm sitting in the back either screaming at them or throwing snacks to the back seat. All of that, not even cell phone related, is a distraction to your driving. Above and beyond that, we know that drugs and alcohol impair our judgment when behind the wheel, reducing our reaction time as we drive. Serious consequences, much more than you're not going to have a treat for dinner tonight. And as we move into prom weekend, I want you to remember that while your choices are free to make, and as you've grown older, you get to make those choices. Your teachers, your parents won't be making them for you. That you will be the sole owner of those responsibilities and consequences. Can you live with the consequences of those actions that you make? Do you want to have the dream job? You're going to have to get up and go to class. Do you want to live till tomorrow? You're going to need to put your seatbelt on. And I want for you a grand life. I want you to choose friends to surround you, to help you support and respect you and love you and help you make those good choices. And in turn, I want each and every one of you to turn around and reciprocate that type of friendship. I want you to help others make good choices. I don't want you to be driving down the road, egging on your friend who's driving and say, pass that car, pass that car. That's not a good friend. It might sound fun at the time, and a lot of you participate in activities like that, I'm sure. I'm guilty as well. But I want each of you to be safe. I want you to have a future. I want you to have all of your hopes and dreams. And in the words of Ms. Finani, I want to leave you with the idea that I want you to stay safe, New Richmond, especially this weekend and into our graduation season. So, thank you. special speaker with us today who's a friend of the New Richmond community for a very long time, as well as an instructor both here at the high school and down at the middle school. You probably remember his face. His name is Ron Stang, and he's going to share his story with us today.
Thank you for recognizing me. I tried to wear the same khaki pants and the same blue shirt that I had 4 years ago, different color shoes, but other than that, also I was watching people out in the hallway. It's been 4 years, and my oh my, you've grown, you've matured. Good school. Hey, talk to Mr. Bailey about that. Quite pleased with most of your being. You're probably wondering why me up here at this time. I could ask you about your 10-finger keyboarding. You are working on that, aren't you? Yeah. You remember the home key is F and J, right? Or is it your texting keyboarding is a whole lot better? I could ask you if you're still working on that same career plan that you wrote about in the 8th grade or 7th grade. Some of you only had it in the 7th grade. And believe it or not, I'm still interested in knowing that you are working on your career plan. The reason I'm here is mostly based on your future. Career exploration has always been important to me. My own father died of cancer when I was 11. My mother had to drop out of high school in the 9th grade during the Great Depression to help support the family by moving in with a widow and taking care of her. So I really didn't have anybody to help me figure out what I should be doing as a career choice. When I was 13, the 8th grade, I vowed back then, someday I would help kids figure out how to pick the right path. So I was thrilled to start helping middle schoolers back in the 80s. I may even have helped, well, I probably helped most of your parents work on their career plans. I was thrilled to help my own son and daughter who went through the school system. My son wanted to be involved in spacecraft since he was in preschool. Star Wars hit right about kindergarten. Christmas presents, he had to have the Millennium Falcon, X-Wing fighter. Had to have that fancy joystick back in middle school, high school, so he could work on something called Flight Navigator. He wanted to be accepted into the Air Force officer training, so he kept physically fit. He worked out in the gym here with the weights, rode an 18-speed bicycle up and down the hills here of New Richmond, took 100-mile hikes on his bike just to keep fit. He was on the Science Olympiad team. He loved music and dedicated himself to the music program from elementary, middle, through high school. Mr. Bailey, your principal now, was his band teacher here at the high school. I can tell you a story about Mr. Bailey because I taught him. Mark also loved to sing. He was in the Troubadours. He applied to the University of Cincinnati for a coveted spot in their aerospace engineering division. He was one of 300 applicants, and there was going to be 20 accepted. We were thrilled when he got his letter of acceptance. And you're probably still wondering, well, what's that got to do with your assembly here? Well, your prom is coming up this Saturday. sure sign that the end of the school year is coming. And for seniors, the final big social event of your youth. I know about proms. I attended junior and senior proms at 3 different high schools. Yeah, I remember the pressure, making sure everything was going to be just right so that my date and I could have a lot of fun. The high school staff had asked me to give this talk to you because they want me to share that personal story about my son. The staff feels about you the same way that I do. They really care about you, not just for your education, but also for your well-being. Mrs. Minning was talking about that. I have dared to live in the same area that I've taught in for 39 years. I only lost 2 mailboxes. Some are here as high school staff members that I've taught. I still ask the young graduates that I see how they're doing. I just talked to one of the parents 2 nights ago about their kids in college. I know what it's like to go out and celebrate for prom. The scary part for the staff and for your parents is at the time you're traveling from the prom and to the after prom party. As Mrs. Minning was talking about, there are so many distractions. I guess you're tired of hearing how high school students are the most prone to car accidents, most prone. That texting, playing music, paying attention to other passengers in the car are the main causes of those accidents. There is also the temptation to celebrate this coming-of-age party by drinking alcohol, smoking some weed, popping a pill. Then there are your parents. I wasn't happy when my mom constantly got on my case. She stayed up half the night worrying about me when I was out late with my friends. Then I became a parent of teenage children. I remembered what I was like on those nights. And I know now, I can't see your faces that well, but I know you're giving me that I know I've heard this before, face and attitude. What you don't know is that one of the reasons they asked me to give this talk, when my son, right after my son graduated, by that time 4 of his classmates here at New Richmond had died in car accidents. They were the drivers. I went to their funerals. I still do a lot of work with people in funerals. The blank look on their classmates' faces told me that they could not believe this was happening. Young people don't die. They're invincible. Then it happened to my own son, Mark. He was driving home from work. He was working his way through college. He was driving the car of his dreams, a used Mustang convertible that he purchased. He was almost home. He was right down here at the intersection, coming home on 52, stopped at the stoplight there, right in front of Frisch's. That stoplight had just been installed there. People were still used to coming up to the intersection, thinking it was like a stop sign, looking both ways and pulling out. So I warned Mark to be extra careful at that intersection, to wait and make sure that nobody was going to pull out when the light turned green. So when the light did turn green, he paused and waited to make sure. A former student of mine, one that was a year younger than Mark, graduated a year later, was driving an old pickup truck that he had just bought. He was fixing it up, had just replaced the seat, but hadn't taken the time to put back the seatbelt. Anyway, he was coming down 52 and saw how long the light had been red. You can still do this. It takes about 14 seconds. He knew that it would change in a few seconds. Something in the truck distracted him. So he only glanced up and saw that the light had changed. so he didn't brake. He hadn't noticed that the car that had stopped at the light hadn't moved yet. He smashed into my son's car right at about 50 miles an hour. The impact snapped Mark's neck immediately, and he died right there. The boy in the truck, of course with no seatbelt, flew forward into the steering wheel and dashboard, snapping his leg in 3 places, crushing his ribs, breaking most of the bones in his face, and had many compound injuries to his internal organs. They had to shock him back to life 3 times on the way to the hospital. While there, he found out who it was that he had hit. He knew my son, just like a lot of you juniors know the seniors. Same way. And I had been one of his favorite teachers. He was so distraught, they had to put him on suicide watch. After 3 months of multiple operations and painful therapy, he was called to appear in court at the table. He was crying so passionately that the judge postponed the hearing. I knew his mother very well. She was a janitor right down here at the middle school where I was teaching. We had talked a lot about raising teenage boys. She not only had to deal with her smashed up son, but she also couldn't face me. She didn't come to work. I had pleaded to come back to work. You see, her job also provided her with the health insurance that she needed for her son. I found out from her that although his physical wounds were healing, his emotional state never improved. Her health insurance didn't cover mental health insurance. 2 months later, the court hearing was called again, and I was there. I spoke to the judge and asked him to count the boy's time that he was in the hospital and physical therapy and some of the jail time as time enough instead of a long incarceration in prison. And I asked the judge to order that there be mental health therapists assigned to him. I am a Christian, and hate is not the way of a true Christian. See, I too, just like this many have admitted, I've done a lot of stupid things while I was driving. And by the grace of God, I've never hurt anyone. Your parents, many of whom I've taught, they want you to have fun at the prom. But you are going to be reminded over and over and over again about being careful going to and from the celebration. Most of them probably will not sleep Saturday night. Right after Mark's funeral, which the troubadour sang, in his memory, we started the Ron Stang Music Award for the best new Richmond High School instrument and vocal student. Was that awarded last night here? Or is that going to be Friday night?
It was last night.
Please?
Last night.
Who got it? Oh,
Taryn.
who?
Taryn Rupp.
Congratulations. I also started a scholarship for music students, and I think with the assistant principal, we've worked out how it's going to change a little bit, but it'll be awarded again this year. There's a new scholarship being offered in the name of Nick Wilson. That young New Richmond alumnus died in a local car accident less than 2 years ago, right at the bottom of the hill that I live on. I attended his prayer service. We had it down at the ball field down there in the village. Again, the look of disbelief on teenagers' faces. Not supposed to be able to die at that age. For 20 years, I bought those 2 pages in the yearbook for the seniors to sign. Did you get to sign it? Everybody got to do that? And even I'll make sure that we have the grant students sign that. The peace be with you that's at the top of it. I asked for that to be put there. because it's still my sincerest wish for you that the peace of Christ be with you and your family as you leave here. That means you have to make a graduation. I hope and pray for your success in the career of your choice. For you seniors, I offer you an early congratulations on your graduation. Have fun at the prom. But for God's sakes, be careful. You know, Sunday is Mother's Day. Give her the best present you can. Your safe return home. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron, very much for coming and sharing your story with us today. Very important for our kids to hear that today. Not only did we want you to hear some news about choices today, but we also would like to impart upon you something that we hope is extremely impactful. And to do that, what we're going to need to do is actually leave the building. So we're going to do that as orderly as we possibly can, and we're going to exit out the doors